I'm still looking for places I haven't finished exploring in Limgrave. Still. There's something here near the very first church of Elle. Since I'm here, I want to talk to the merchant, but I see there's an option to ask him about the howling in the mistwood. And he tells me I have to snap my finger to talk to the wolf. That's a bit rude in my book, but I'm glad I decided to talk to the merchant, or who knows when I'd have discovered this, if ever. But before we go scout for furry boyfriends, I'd like to explore a bit. I'm starting to accept myself, and it seems like I just like to look everywhere in games, literally, which is interesting because I don't generally get like all achievements or anything like that, but I do sometimes 100% in-game. I'm just not as motivated by Steam achievements as other people seem to be. While exploring, I take a moment to look at the statue in the place where the game started. I wonder who is it depicting. Here, there's a cave statue, which is exciting because I had no idea I had missed a whole cave in this area. So I killed some guys near the cave, mostly because one of them once transformed in a rune bear ages ago, and I'm kind of looking for other potential, mimic people. The cave is called Stormfoot Catacombs, which yet again reminds me that there is another catacomb somewhere I have to get back to. Inside, there's a ghost who again talks about returning to the Earthtree after dying. And at this point, I do get the concept. It's one of the gargoyle caves, pretty easy one to die. At this point, I'm definitely over-leveled for this section of the game, but I still maintain my patience and don't rush into anything, because I don't want to die. There's some of those fire pillars in here, and I find the prattling pate. And then, anyway, risk to get overwhelmed by too many gargoyles. Luckily, we're fine. There's nothing on the pillars, so I just progress to find the Wandering Noble Ashes, which I promptly use on the boss. That is just a cat goyle. It's kind of fun just watching my noblemen, minions, fight for me, to be honest. From the fight, I get another Ash, the noble sorcerer, who apparently is just an untalented nerd who wasn't good enough for mage school. I then look for that cave I was mentioning that I had left behind. I find it's the Death-Touched Catacomb, which had skeletons that were a bit too strong when I was in there the first time. It's safe to say they're not too strong now, as I literally one-shot all of them. By doing so, I also discovered that I think if I kill them with my fate stuff, they don't even respawn. Or at least that's what I think is happening. Very satisfying. It's not a super interesting dungeon, but I do find the Uchigatana, and the boss is a Black Knife Assassin. The name reminds me, because I'm paying attention, of the Night of the Black Knives, which is when the insurgents against the demigods started, and the description of the talisman he drops confirms that connection. Furthermore, there is a chest with a death root in it, which is, from what I remember, what made killing a demigod possible in the first place. Also, I have a friend who eats those, so I should go there later. But before I do that, I want to explore the area around here. There's a lot of broken up giants on the ground, under something that looks like a big bridge or aqueduct. One of the giants comes back to life, but again, I'm really overpowered. There's also a corpse sitting on a dead giant, holding a talisman that enhances attacks on horseback. Perimetering the area only gets me some runes, so I go give the death root to Gurank. He, in exchange, gives me an incantation called Bestial Sling, Earthbending. Alas, it's time to go meet my new furry boyfriend, so we should dress for the occasion. And I decide fur is obviously the way to go. I still think snapping to summon the furry boyfriend is kind of rude, but he actually doesn't have that much to say. His name is Blight, and he's looking for someone called Darrywill. He's also very tall and has a much more impressive fur coat than me. As usual, I don't have any leads on where to go besides around here, so I go back to my usual exploration. There is an Everjail I haven't investigated near Red Riding Hood. And on the way there, I destroy a giant. We're still looking for runes to level up Dex, after all. In the Everjail, there's a Crucible Knight. I was feeling confident it'd be an easy fight, but turns out to actually be quite problematic. Maybe he has high fate defense. He also randomly starts flying and has a magic tail just to stay on the furry team. In my second attempt, I stay a bit more patient and careful, and from his death, I get his tail attack incantation, which I'm excited about. I'm collecting so many incantations. I obviously perimeter around the area and stumble on the fort/bridge where I find a talisman for archery. Then I decided to fight the giant on a ruin, arguably the worst possible battleground. Fortunately, I don't die, but it was frustrating. I collect some more runes in the area and then stumble upon a big clearing with a lot of giants. There's even a statue that seems to have something glowing inside, and a message suggests to use a giant to break it. That's a fun mechanic. I kill all the giants, of course, one by one, until I get back to the shack where Bernal is staying. So I continue onwards towards the aqueduct, I'm just calling it an aqueduct, and I find a huge building, looks very imposing and cool, but I'm invaded by Recusant Henricus. He's not very strong, and drops me yet another talisman. It's Talisman Day. The building is actually a coliseum, which I think a comment had already told me that is an online PvP mechanic, so I do not care at all. So instead, I do what I do best and just perimeter the whole area. I discovered I need bird legs to craft an item that gives more runes for a time. So I've also started killing birds, which makes me feel very guilty. I'll probably still avoid owls though. I then encounter a fancy knight that drops me an Ash of War called Golden Vow that looks very interesting potentially. And in another constantly on fire place, I also find fire slugs, which I find endearing and remind me of Twilight Princess, my personal favorite Zelda game that I actually might be learning to speedrun soon. In my wanderings, I end up back to Red Riding Hood, so I think that means we're getting close to finishing my exploration of Limgrave, finally. It only took us 1,000,000 episodes, no big deal. But what about that building in the Mistwood that we saw last time, right? Let's go take a look. The building is called Siofra River well, and it's a fancy elevator going down, a very long way down. Of course, I remember this from the first time I played the game. It was like absurd to discover that there was such a big place underneath the map, and I had no idea how big it actually was. I do wonder if the underworld of Tears of the Kingdom was inspired by this. Of course, it's not like the first time it's ever been done. I think even Skyrim has something like this. And of course, there's like the D&D underworld, but still. There's different type of vegetation down here, unsurprisingly, and some very sturdy guys with spears. I definitely don't feel as over-leveled down here. I think these guys would go down much faster with a blunt weapon. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything like that at my disposal, and my build probably wouldn't jive with it anyway. But yeah, killing these guys is a very long process, and of course my brain is broken, so I am compelled to kill every single one. Do you guys have this compulsion too? I collect everything I can find on the bottom floor, and then notice I can also climb on the walls. There's even some more guys waiting for me at the upper floor. Dropping down this scarabin item is only partially successful. I managed to kill the scarab that gives me one of the spells the spear guys use, but to get to the item I have to do the whole journey and jump down 3 times before making it finally. And for what? Really, for what? I obviously continue killing the spear guys near a waterfall, and I'm rewarded with soap. Finally, a good reward. I also drop one of their spears, and it scales with int. I continue onwards to find another elevator, which brings me up, but not all the way up. There's more cave, of course. I almost get killed by a crab, that would have been tragic, and then make it to the real deal, the Siofra River big cave deal. I light up a torch that also lights up on a pillar on some stairs, indicating I have to light up a bunch more torches to get to something. I even find a map, which is handy, and get to exploring the place a bit. There's these ethereal looking enemies that are kind of big, but only appear if I'm close enough. That means I can't really tell beforehand if there's gonna be enemies or not from afar. They aren't squishy, but they aren't too tanky either, so they feel manageable. And just so everyone is on the same page, I'm calling these guys Minotaurs, even though they're definitely not Minotaurs. They even dropped me one of their axes. I find it kind of cool that there's even animals down here. It feels particularly magical and surreal to see like deer and hogs in a cave, like in perpetual darkness. Though I could have done without the crabs. I find another torch on the side, then I see a round portal and decide to go through. It actually brings me to another part of the cave. It's a bit more chaotic to explore this way, but I'm okay with it. I can continue from here. I light another torch, fight some rats, and generally just take my time finding all I can. On the floor there's some formic rocks, implying there's ants somewhere I can't see. And at the very edge of the cave there's a grace, and up the stairs I find a cool looking talisman that raises focus. Here there's also another elevator that is gate capped by an imp, and I do unlock it but decide not to go up with it. Instead, I continue exploring and killing everything on my path. I light another torch, and then I spot an item in a very inconvenient place. To get to it, I have to traverse a bridge, where I find a golden seed, then carefully walk on a bastion and go around a pillar. Kind of scary, but I do find an imp key. I then explore this tiny side part of the map, very pretty by the way, and find a rune arc in a little cave. Back on mainland, if you can call it that, I get an Ash of War from a scarab and continue, slaughtering minotaurs. Now that I think about it, this whole place and enemies remind me a lot of the Outer Wilds DLC. Friendly reminder to play Outer Wilds if you haven't already. And at this point, I'm back near the place where I teleported, and I'm back to fighting for my life against crabs. On the water there's also these floating spheres of electricity that shoot at you if you get too close. After shooting, thankfully they just die. So I patiently continue forwards, fighting minotaurs and lighting torches until disaster strikes and I trigger way too many of them at the same time and I have to run away. Though running away does not help me because I get sniped from no fucking where, and this tilts me a little bit because I was being patient and careful, so I kinda angrily ran back to my runes, or rather I tried to, because obviously this gets me murdered by the energy balls and I die, losing my runes. And of course I promptly rage quit. A couple days later, I give it another try, more carefully. Patience always is the best practice in these games, but I am getting a bit fatigued, to be completely honest, and I hate losing runes that way. I don't really know where the sniper was, but I climb up a pillar and find another portal instead. It brings me to a part of the cave that is higher up and I think otherwise unreachable. I love how water looks in this game. Perimetering, I find the spear guy's meeting house, and I have to kill like 1,000,000 of them to find the other spell that they use. I'd love to use these, but these are int spells, unfortunately. I also find a Sombering Smithing Stone level 5, which makes me think that I'm not really supposed to be here right now. It's much higher level to what I really need at the moment. And a bit later, there's also a rune level 7, which feels the same. In the middle of the lake, there's this big guy called Dragon Skin Soldier. I think he looks very cool, but Luthor and I are very outmatched, and he kills me in one hit. So I decided it's not the time for this Siofra River just yet. So I just get my runes and run away like a chicken. I think we'll come back soonish, but for now, the fatigue has come back to hunt me. I'm officially done with Limgrave, both emotionally and because there's literally nothing else to do, I think. So tune in next time for finally Stormhill Castle with my new weapon that I just got the stats for. Bye bye.